The intro video was the logo for the Heumann Perspective, with purple and orange concentric circles swirling around a purple photo of Judy Heumann. The intro fades into a video with a lavender-colored background with 5 video interview squares. On the top left is Morgan Whitlach. She is a white woman with curly, reddish-orange hair and is wearing glasses and a purple top. She is sitting against a teal backdrop. In the top middle is Judy Heumann, a white woman who uses a motorized wheelchair. She has short brown hair and is wearing glasses and a pink collared shirt. She is in her apartment with many photos behind her. On the top right is Judith Snedeger, a white woman who has short brown hair and is wearing glasses and a multicolored patterned top. She is sitting in a room with a blue wall behind her and a computer. On the bottom left is Laura Butler, a white woman with long brown hair, wearing glasses and a black shirt. There is a white backdrop behind her. On the bottom right is Elysia Macini Duerr, a white woman with long, dark hair and blue square glasses. They are wearing a checkered shirt and have a rainbow backdrop.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you back to the Heumann Perspective. Today's discussion is going to be focusing on conservatorship or guardianship. As many of you know at this period, now we're taping this in July of 2021. Because of Britney Spears, there's been a lot more focus and discussion on issues around guardianship and conservatorship. This is an issue that the disability community, young and old, have been engaged in for many decades now. And the people that we're presenting to you today are individuals who both have personal experience, having been under guardianship and having been successfully able to get out from under guardianship, and others who are working in the field in various capacities. If we could start with Alicia.
Hi, my name is Elysia Macini Duerr. I'm a staff attorney at Disability Rights Pennsylvania, and my work there is based on representing people who are facing guardianship and also helping people remove guardianship.
Hi, my name is Laura Butler. I am the project director of My Choice Kentucky at the Human Development Institute at the University of Kentucky. And that project helps train people about supported decision-making and alternatives to guardianship, as well as support people who are seeking to have their rights restored or avoid guardianship.
And Alicia said that she was a lawyer. Are you a lawyer?
I am not a lawyer, no. I'm a disability advocate.
So I think what's important about knowing that you're not a lawyer is that people can be involved in this work and will work with lawyers when necessary, but you don't have to be a lawyer to be involved in this work.
100%.
Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan Whitlach. I'm the legal director at Quality Trust for Individuals with Disabilities, which is an advocacy organization for people with disabilities that's based in the District of Columbia. I am a lawyer. I'm also the lead project director of the National Resource Center for Supported Decision-Making, and I've been involved and really devoted my 20-year law career to disability justice issues, particularly those relating to guardianship and alternatives to guardianship. So I provide legal representation as well as systemic advocacy. And this is really important to me because I think that when we think about disability justice issues, recognizing people's rights to have autonomy and control over their own lives is critically important.
Thank you. Morgan, could you briefly explain to the audience what guardianship is and conservatorship?
Absolutely. So the specific procedures vary by state, but guardianship and conservatorship is a legal process by which a court declares that an adult is incapable of making some or all of their own decisions and appoints a third party to make them for the person. And so while the scope may vary depending on court order and state law, in all cases, it means that there's a loss of personal autonomy, that people subject to it can no longer be recognized as having certain kinds of legal rights to direct their own lives. So they can lose rights like fundamental choices about where they live, what kind of medical, psychiatric, or psychological treatment they receive and who they get it from, how they can access and spend their own money, or where they can work, where they can go, even where they can, spend time with, what friends they can have. And guardianship can also impact a person's right to vote and marry in some states. So it's a really critical issue to be examining here today.
Thank you. So Judith, can you explain a little bit about how you wound up being under guardianship?
I was sent away by my brother. He sent me away while my dad was still living and I couldn't see him.
Judith, was your father sick?
Yes, my dad wasn't capable enough of taking care of me, but my brother still put me in guardianship because of that.
And did you have any ability to discuss whether or not you wanted to be getting these kinds of protections?
No.
Yeah. So they were limiting your ability to spend time with your father.
That's right.
Mhm. And how did that make you feel at the time?
Bad, mostly.
Mhm. How did you learn about the fact that you could possibly get out from under guardianship?
Well, my brothers told me that I couldn't walk, couldn't talk or anything. And I basically didn't listen to him. I listened to the other people and they helped me with it.
So tell us, Judith, now that you're out of guardianship, how does it feel for you?
It feels exciting to have my own rights and come in here and get to pick on Alicia when I want to. And call Jenny anytime I want to. I'll live where I live at.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. So how many people do you live with?
Just one, but I
Uh-huh.
have a big new family.
So tell us a little bit about your family, your new family.
My new family likes to travel, so do I. And we can just pack up our stuff and don't even have to ask for permission to go. Just do it. Get out there and just show expression.
So
Happiness.
happiness, that's a very important word. So you frequently feel happy about your life.
Yes.
But Judith, I wanted to ask you another question. Do you have a team of people that if you have a question, you can talk with them if you want to help you come to a decision?
Yeah, I talk to them every day.
If I can make a comment about supported decision-making,
Of course.
there's a big push now to codify it in every state.
So codify means what?
Turn it into law. I don't think it's necessary to be codified because when you think about what supported decision-making is, we all use supported decision-making all the time, right? Like if I need a medical procedure, I'm going to talk to my friends and my husband and see what they think. If I have a financial problem, I'm going to do the same. That's all supported decision-making is. It's simply recognizing that we all depend on support from our circle of friends and family or even professionals. And that's all it is. And to make that into some foreign thing for people with disabilities and say like, it's something more than that. It's really not. It's just recognizing that we all need supports to make decisions. And in Pennsylvania, there's actually case law, meaning like a case that went through the courts that recognized that this is a substitute for guardianship. If you have friends and family and a circle of support, that's all you need.
I agree very much with you. And I think, thank you very much for this comment, because it really allows, like when we talk about things like universal design in the built environment, for example, what we've been saying is what people have seen as accommodations for someone who has a disability is really an accommodation that most often benefits everyone.
I worry sometimes with this kind of movement towards codifying supported decision-making or putting it into law, we'll start to think about supported decision-making as a piece of paper or a form, when we all know that supported decision-making on the ground looks very different than that. And it's not a piece of paper. It's about really supporting people to be able to, you know, have the autonomy that they deserve to have as human beings. So I couldn't agree with that more about that. Elysia is right that we're seeing this kind of movement towards this codification and formal recognition of supported decision-making, which some say have benefits. Some see it as being kind of more stigmatizing, like you're treating supported decision-making as different for people with disabilities. I know in Alaska, they kind of adopted a universal design approach like you're talking about, Judy, where they said, you don't have to have a disability to use a supported decision-making agreement. Anybody can. And they didn't link it expressly to the American with Disabilities Act, like a lot of the laws we're seeing do. And so I like the idea of kind of innovating, thinking about how you kind of promote a formal recognition while realizing that it doesn't need to be formal. It can be very informal, and really trying to tease out those kinds of principles.
What are some of the barriers that you see people facing in trying to avoid guardianship?
Sure, this is Alicia. I think the biggest barrier is ableism and discrimination against people with disabilities, because, alternatives to guardianship already exist, as Laura said, as Morgan said. They've been on the books for like 20 years and they're just ignored. And I think the reason they're ignored is there's a general attitude, and it might be subconscious, with, in the legal system, with judges, with lawyers, that people with disabilities, that their rights don't matter. And as long as you think their rights don't matter, you're not going to fight for those rights. So I think it's a real pervasive problem that needs to be overcome. People need to learn about their own feelings of ableism and how they're treating others who are disabled before they can really stick up for the rights of people with disabilities.
What do you see as some of the major reasons that people think guardianship is something that should be pursued? And is there any responsibility for informing the individual for whom guardianship is being sought to give them information about what they can do to prevent this?
This is Alicia. Yeah, I think like I already have mentioned, ableism is a big problem, but I also think some of the petitioners for guardianship, those are the people asking for guardianship, they don't know about the alternatives, and their lawyers don't know about the alternatives, or their lawyers are withholding information about the alternatives because they can make more money petitioning for guardianship than they can just telling them, hey, support your disabled relative. That's all you need to do, right? That doesn't make a lawyer any money. So that sounds really negative, but like a lot of the alternatives for guardianship are things where lawyers can't profit off of. I know Morgan and I were part of a national guardianship summit about trying to reform like the model guardianship laws. And one of the suggestions is everyone facing guardianship proceedings should be represented by counsel, by good counsel. It's probably, there's counsel and then there's good counsel, right? So I think that that's important to protect people's rights as well.
I agree. I mean, I would agree. I think the right to counsel should be fundamental, and it should be both of the court appointed as well. It could be also the person retaining a counsel of their choice. I think you look at the right to counsel, and then you look to the role of counsel. And in some states, the role of counsel is not one as a zealous advocate for the person's wishes. It's more of a guardian ad litem, or looking at the best interest of the person. Rather, and I think as an attorney, it kind of totally goes against my grain to think you wouldn't listen to your client and advocate as zealously as possible for what their wished outcomes are. Even if you're unsuccessful, you have to give them that opportunity to be able to be heard in court. And I think there needs to be a lot more reforms in that area, both in terms of the right to counsel, but the role of counsel. And we had to actually have statutory reform in DC to make it more of a reality that you're entitled to zealous representation of your express wishes.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And to speak to your point about, or your question about why people are seeking guardianship, I think lack of knowledge of alternatives is definitely a reason. And I think that comes from the fact that guardianship has been around for centuries, the concept of guardianship, and it's just what people know. And so a lot of the people that we work with have had a legal guardian since they were 18 years old. And that's because when they were turning 18 years old, their family said, if you want to protect them and take care of them, you need to get guardianship. And that was lack of education about what guardianship is, for one, and the fact that alternatives do exist.
Now, I think all of you in some way are working on this issue at a national level. If you could share briefly with us what is going on, and what is it that people listening to this program could do to become more knowledgeable or supportive of the issue of preventing guardianship and the ability to get out of guardianship, even if they don't have a specialty in this area? Like, why should the average person be concerned about the discussion we're having today?
This is Alicia. I think, to answer your last question, the average person should be concerned because this could be any one of us, right? If we're lucky enough to live long enough, we're going to see a decline of our capacity. And would we want someone else to make all of our decisions for us just because we're, the doctor says that we're legally incompetent? That's the term we use in Pennsylvania. I wouldn't. I would still want to make some of my own decisions. So just try to have empathy and realize that this could be you. Like, if you're someone who struggles with empathy, put yourself in this position and realize if you live long enough, this will be you. And will you want someone else to make all of your decisions? Probably not. And, on a national scale, there's lots of stuff going on. I already mentioned supported decision making. I get calls about that a lot, almost every day at DRP. And I would just encourage you, if you're like trying to push for supported decision making in your state, recognize that it already exists. All it means is you're getting the person is getting support from the people they trust in their life. And we don't necessarily have to pass a law. And just try to support people wherever they're at right now.
No, I completely agree. My work on a national level is usually talking to people about how they can do this work in their own state or their own community. And that just involves learning about alternatives to guardianship. You can learn that within your state or from the national leaders. There's a lot more information out there than there was several years ago when I got started. And just get out there and do it. We are a project of two people, and we do everything we can to get out there across the state and talk to people about this and try to change the way things are happening. And the more people you talk to, the more people they're going to talk to, and it can really grow. And I think Judith, when Judith was talking about what it was like to get out of guardianship, I think she said it best. She said it was like coming out of the darkness into the light. And I think that's probably what a lot of people feel.
This is Morgan. I absolutely agree with Alicia. The number one kind of barrier I see to people using supported decision making is they call me and say, I can't use supported decision making, Morgan, because my state hasn't passed a law. And I think we need to think about, you don't need law change for supported decision making. And so I think that what is something you can do? You can be looking at how can I support changes in state law to recognize due process rights of people? How can I make sure to educate all the service providers that are around me that there are options other than guardianship, and that guardianship has with it so many myths that need to be busted, that we all need to help people bust? How can I be supporting people to be able to live, actualized lives? I have found that one of the best things that people can do is really adopt a kind of peer-to-peer kind of training module. In other words, parents educating parents, lawyers educating lawyers, doctors educating doctors, judges educating judges, because it can really help to demystify the concept. And finally, I think one of the best ways on the ground to be promoting alternatives is to show people with disabilities and those with lived experiences using the alternatives, how it works for them in very concrete, practical ways. When I present, I always present with an advocate with a disability or an older adult. That's one of my goals, because I think really hearing those kinds of personal stories can really kind of demystify concepts that we're talking about today.
So Judith, I'd like you to be the final person to present on this panel today. And are there any words that you would like to give to our audience?
Just thanks for watching and listening, and hope you can use this for your next move. When they first tell me they granted my wish to let me have my guardianship back, me and Stacy Thomason, she's my payee, Me and her just set her stuff down and ran through the fountain. I asked for permission first to my judge and the lawyer, and they said, go right ahead. So we ran through it, and I feel free.
So I'd like to thank you all very much for the work that you do every day. And we will put up links to some of the materials that people have discussed today.
History won't forget us or try to minimize our pain, and so I